And finally, I'd like to introduce Lakota West Incubator EDU teacher Taylor Cumberledge and a few of our entrepreneurial students, Emma George, Bella Murphy, and Forrest Money. Last week, this innovative group presented their company and product at Lakota's annual pitch night, and I'm here to tell you all about it.
Hi, thank you for having us. I am Taylor Cumberledge. I'm a teacher at Lakota West High School. This is my first year teaching Incubator EDU, and I actually am loving it. I also teach government for Lakota West High School. With me, I have Emma, Forrest, and Bella, and they are going to give you a pitch, kind of Shark Tank style, of their products that they've created this year, and about the class. So I will let them take it away.
Alright, hello. So I would like you to all just imagine that it's this beautiful hot summer day outside, right? Everything's been going perfect, you've had a great weekend, but now your mom's over there and she's yelling at you to put more sunscreen on. So you're gonna have to put sunscreen on. But you're not gonna want to. It's gonna leave that disgusting, nasty, pasty white film all over your skin. 50 shades of sun won't leave you feeling uncomfortable in your own skin. We strive to have no harmful chemicals, hypoallergenic, and residue-free sunscreen so you can be the best version of yourself. Hi, I'm Emma.
I'm Forrest.
I'm Bella.
And we are 50 Shades of Sun.
So as we've looked across many sunscreens, we found a lot of different problems, but three main ones keep coming up over and over again.
So one of the main problems is the major white casting left on your skin after application.
Another being that not all of them are skin type friendly.
And also there's many hazardous chemicals that go into most mainstream sunscreen brands that can go directly into your bloodstream.
So one of the main things that we can do for that is our sunscreen is going to be coconut oil based. So what that's going to do is be great for absorption as well as SPF. And it's also going to be skin tone, skin type friendly, and then it's going to have no harmful chemicals, which is going to be safer for yourself as well as the environment. So our sunscreen has 5 main components to it. It's going to be all natural, have no harmful chemicals, no white casting, it's going to be hypoallergenic and environment safe. And compared to our top 3 competitors, that's saying a lot. So Coppertone, Neutrogena, and Banana Blue are going to be our main competitors that we've been looking at. And they might have a couple specialty products that have those components in them, but it's not going to be all of it into one like we're looking for. So this is just a short video to kind of show that. Which is going to be one of our main competitors. So we're going to start with the Neutrogena. It's not a ton, it's kind of liquidy though. And as you can see, it does not rub in like at all. There's a ton of white casting, and that's going to leave that sticky feeling all over your skin. It's going to be like entirely uncomfortable, and you're just not going to want to do that. So then we're going to compare that to our sunscreen, so our 50 Shades of Sun sunscreen. And we're going to just put a little bit on there. It doesn't need a ton, but you can see it's on there, and it's already rubbing in super fast. So it doesn't take a lot. There's no white casting. It leaves a nice little shine to their skin, those skin tones, compared to that white casting heavy Neutrogena. So then what do we put in that to make it that way? So our base is going to be coconut oil, like we said earlier. And then our main component of SPF is going to be non-nano zinc oxide. You might be wondering what that is. So a lot of sunscreens have zinc oxide or titanium dioxide, and those are going to be harmful to your skin because the molecules are small enough to seep into your skin and into your bloodstream. So that's going to get into your system and that's unhealthy. But non-nano zinc oxide has bigger molecules, so it just basically sits there. And we also got aloe vera and water.
So this is our 10% song, which is basically just like market size visual, and so at the lowest of the layers of song, so just will 10 market, which is going to be around $1,700, which will just include like our close friends and family. And the second largest circle, we have our SAM serviceable accessible market, which is going to include all of the Americans who regularly wear sunscreen, which is around $1.03 billion. Finally, at the largest, moving up to the 10 total addressable market, that's going to be all of America, since our main market is in America, at $3.31 billion.
And you might be wondering what our next 3 years are going to look like. So would include us sending it off to a lab. But we did recently, like literally just today, figure out that there is a different ingredient that might be able to work in our sunscreen, but we're still in development of that. And then going on from there, we need to figure out bottles and labeling as well.
And in the future, we plan to focus more on manufacturing. Right now, it's just kind of on a, like, each person kind of just making it. So we plan to kind of automate that process. And as of now, our marketing is just through social media and online stuff like that. But hopefully in the future, we can start going out and doing like pop-up shops and farmers markets.
And you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter at SOS_sunscreen.
And a big thank you to our mentor, Steve. He's helped us through a lot of this.
Thank you. And we are 50 Shades of Sun. And this is also our prototype. If anybody wanted to look at this, we can bring it around if you guys would like us to. That's okay. Sure. We'd love to. If you guys want to.
Any questions from the board for our students?
I don't have a question, but Mrs. Shaver and I were at the pitch night, and there were 3 other people in your group as well, correct? Two others. And you guys had an amazing presentation, and what I think impressed me the most is there were 4 judges. In the 14th pitch, there were 4 judges. There was supposed to be 1 winner. There ended up being a tie. These are one of the winners, as long with the team from East. But I think my favorite part was your presentation and your skills and your answering questions. A judge asked you, have you gone outside in the sun and tested on the product? And somebody, was it you, Emma? I don't think it was skipped the beat. She was like, well, have you been outside lately? There's not a lot of sun. But that is our next step. So that question did not bother you at all, and I was very impressed with all of your presentation skills. So great job.
We appreciate it. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Impressive. I'm so excited to see that you guys put this together. I never believed that kids at your age can do this. So I'm very excited. I'm very proud of you. Congratulations. Thank you so much. You're going to go places.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
So as you were looking at business ideas, why sunscreen? How did you land on sunscreen?
Okay, so actually at the very beginning of the year, we created a bug list, things that kind of like bother us, kind of irk us in life, and then like a problem that we want to solve. And so one of the members that she's not here today, named London, it was on her bug list. She hated that white casting that was on sunscreen. And we said, hey, that's a great idea. That's a problem that everyone has, and that's a problem we want to fix. So we decided to go along with that.
Great. Looking at, I would say, I know this down the line as you're looking at bottles and packaging and stuff, but I love the distinct packaging of this. It sets it apart from anything else that's on the market. And as you look at marketing, I agree, social media is definitely where you want to start pop-ups and explore influencer marketing as well. It's like a cheap, inexpensive way to scale pretty quickly. But great job.
Thank you so much.
As a mom of young kids, there's nothing worse than trying to rub sunscreen in when you're at the beach. They hate it, we hate it, so this is fabulous. I love the idea. I also love the packaging. I also love your marketing. It includes a lot of people of multiple ages, multiple skin tones. I love that you have thought about that already, and then you really use that to launch into this project. So congratulations on your win the other night, and thank you for the presentation today. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you guys so much.
So 2 of the other finalist teams, there was one that was a way to better source auto parts. There was another team that was doing an automatic plant water that could somewhat diagnose your plant and how much water and what you needed to do to help fix it up. And then their competitor that they tied with, I believe they were called Drippy Grippy. And they did customized golf club handles so that you could put whatever you wanted and replace your handles. So if whatever you were into, you could do it. So they were going to have some stock ones and some that were individually customizable that they would be able to just produce on demand. So very creative ideas, and again, like, it's not just your product, but the thought process that this is helping to evoke, as well as the public presentation. So if anyone wants to make investments in any of those companies, I'm sure they would all appreciate the support.
Yes.
They got very much some seed money from Emory, but, they're still trying to grow their businesses, so they all did a great job. So if without anything else, or either of you like to say anything to the students?
I just think it's excellent. I heard about it the next day and thought, I probably need to have some of that since I'm passing Florida. Great job.
Thank you so much.
I like the marketing, and I also find some humor in the title.
Thank you.
Being somebody that has to dodge the sun and wear a lot of sunscreen, do you think that it would last longer with the larger molecules, or do you think that that's why they had the smaller ones before?
You know what? I'm not completely sure. I think part of it is just mass production might be a huge part of it, where it might just be cheaper for them to do the smaller molecules. And honestly, ours was more expensive to purchase. And I think that if they just use normal zinc oxide, it's easy to produce, it's quick, and it's cheap. So I think it's more of a cheapness standpoint, that they're just looking to mass produce it to the point where it's like, they're making so much money that they don't care.
That's right.
I just want to shout out too that there was 4 judges that were from the business community. They each have a mentor. The 4 groups that presented were not the entire class. There were other groups within the class. They were just 4 chosen. All of them have a mentor. Emory Credit Union put up the seed money for the $1,000 for the winner, and when they found out there was a tie, instead of splitting the money, they ponied up another $1,000. So I think we really, a big thank you to our mentors in our business community that get involved with our students and teach them real life skills. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and Ms. Coverledge for taking this on, so
Yes.
I'm glad that you've all enjoyed this together. I'm sure she's done a great job for our kids.
Yes, she's done an amazing job. Thank you so much, Missy.
All right, if you'd like to join us up front. The best part of our meetings when we get to have our students present, so thank you for doing that. Love all the innovative things. For board president's comments, just wanted to update everyone that we have started the superintendent search process. As everyone's known, we've been working with a search firm finding leaders. We will be doing our first round of interviews this week with the candidates, and then we will narrow that down hopefully to 2 people for the following week. And we have invited community members, business leaders, staff, and students to participate with us. The process is a bit different than it's been in years past, that it won't be an open call, but instead will be a closed executive session meeting. This is the process that our search firm always does with all their clients, and they said if you hire us, this is the process you will use, because this is our expertise and this is how we typically do it. So we are following their process and being respectful of that process, and we look very much forward to meeting the candidates this week to continue to find the best person to lead Lakota into the future. So So with that, I'll move to superintendent's comments for Dr. Lakota.
Thank you. For my report tonight, I'd like to invite our Public Relations Department personnel to come forward and present on what they do in their department. Good evening again. I wish that I went before the kids. So thank you for the opportunity to give you a behind-the-scenes look at our district communication efforts. So we are in this together. This pillar of Lakota's vision guides us in our everyday work. We're in this with our staff, our students, our families, our communities. That's what we refer to as our audience. Examples of how we do this can be seen throughout our work. For example, we redesigned our newsletter this year to categorize our stories by Lakota's pillars. We carry this through in themes of our community mailers and even with the hashtags that we use on social media. Like with many public school districts, we continue to face the challenge of educating our community about student learning and experiences happening in our schools, while also combating misinformation with facts. So strong relationships are built on open, honest, and transparent communication and trust, together with my team of Lauren Besher, Christopher Hirsch, and Cindy Lee. We understand this, and we're committed to being honest and transparent, engaging with our community, and always trying to enhance our communication efforts. We strive to improve how the community views the district through the communication they receive. So our communication efforts are actually based on a very detailed plan. We research, we plan, we implement, and we evaluate. In March of last year, we received the results of the communications audit that I requested. I wanted to know from an outsider's perspective, how are we doing and where can we improve? Overall, CISO concluded that Lakota's communications team, and I quote, has created and is implementing a very robust communications program that touches on all of the essential strategy areas. While this report includes recommended action steps to be considered, our suggestions are more tweaks and adjustments rather than significant changes. It is also important to point out that the district has seen excellent work produced by its team. This team is producing a great deal of high-level materials and communication. I am incredibly proud of the work that my team produces. The results of this audit reaffirm our commitment to effective communication, and it motivates us to push the envelope further. We've taken our suggestions into account, along with other formal and informal research that we've conducted, to create a plan to share the story of Lakota with our community. So this past fall, we surveyed our community about our district communication. With just over 800 responses, here are some of our key takeaways. One of the things that we were surprised about was that our mobile app did not rank higher as a channel of information. Lauren took this on and created a very cute social media campaign starring some of our youngest learners to remind our community that when they have questions, there's an app for that. We're more academic focused with our content. We have a video series that we launched with Dr. Lawley, a Learn Lakota with Dr. Lawley, that is diving deeper into topics. And under the information they wanted, parents want to know about safety in schools. Obviously, that is our number one priority. However, while much of our safety plan is confidential, we now have a safety and security brochure on our website that outlines our safety initiatives for parents. In addition to the rating and ranking questions, we asked for feedback on how to improve the way we communicate. And here are some of the thoughts that were shared and how we've already responded. Too many sources of information is something that we hear frequently. Parents having to go to various apps or websites for information from the district, the school, and the classroom. Our Parent Square pilot actually started today at 8 schools. While Parent Square will be used for communications from the principal and school level as well as district to start, eventually we will move to teachers communicating through Parent Square as well. As for demands for honesty about the state report card, we are honest. However, I think that this demand actually comes from a need for a better understanding of the reporting system and what we're doing to improve our scores. This year we expanded our coverage about the state report card. In addition to a story on the website that was also shared in our newsletters, we recapped Dr. Lowley's presentation to the board, as well as including the report card components in our quality profile that was mailed to our community. And they shared how each component related to the section of the publication. The many acronyms used in education can certainly be confusing. We've heard it described as the alphabet soup of education. We've recently created a page on our website that defines the education lingo. We also heard that when you come to Lakota, it's difficult to navigate what to do and where to find information. Now, on the Welcome Center's landing page on our website, we have a new family section that directs you to the Next Steps guide. There, families can find resources like school hours and locations, information about transportation, the academic calendar, and more. So as a department, our goal is to communicate in a way that our staff, families, students, and residents and business owners appreciate the value of Lakota education and publicly support this district. When we say that, we want to see a change in attitude or behavior. That could be someone saying, oh, I didn't realize, fill in the blank, liking, sharing, commenting on our social media posts, or correcting misinformation when they hear it, asking questions if they aren't sure. We want people to come to us as a district as a trusted source. So after we've done our research, we start to plan and then implement our communication efforts in order to meet our goal. Our first step in planning is to determine our objectives, and then we strategize as to how we're going to meet those objectives. From there, we determine what tactics or communication methods we're going to use to implement our plan. So this year, our first objective is to communicate effectively so that our audiences, our community at large, will have an accurate understanding of the education our students receive. Our internal audience are people who are connected to Lakota, our staff, our parents, our students. Our external audiences include our residents and taxpayers without ties to Lakota, our alumni, business owners, prospective residents, outreach organizations, groups like that. So here are some examples of how we're implementing our strategies to meet our objective of improving the understanding of what a Lakota education means. This year, we've been very intentional about explaining and showing examples of personalized learning. Examples of how we engage our community to gather feedback, include our thought exchange surveys, and working with the board to host community conversations on a variety of topics. Last year, we reimagined our traditional State of the Schools event and invited our community to light up Lakota. We had an even bigger turnout this year, and if you'll recall, we organized our schools this year by the pillar that their program represented, according to our mission and vision. This even included, we are fiscally responsible. We're finishing up our new video tours for prospective families so that they can get a peek into our schools even before they enroll. And to help clarify the code's curriculum, we've summarized our CCAP meetings and report card results. We've shared more about personalized learning in the winter mailer, even showcasing 5 teachers and giving detailed examples of what personalized learning looks like in their classrooms. We've worked really hard to increase the positive media coverage and have already more than doubled the positive stories the news has covered this year. And we continue to encourage our staff to help tell our story and share ideas with us. Staff have QR code magnets to quickly share photos with us for social media posts, as well as reminding them to reach out to us directly to come visit their classrooms. We've taken some of the burden, this has all taken some of the burden off of our principals. Slowly but surely, this is picking up. We've had teachers reach out when they have guest speakers or projects going on. Sometimes they become social media posts, and sometimes we reach out to write an actual story on it, or even pitch it to the media. Our next objective focuses on supporting Adams Inc. and the work of the Treasurer's Department, as well as building support and educating our community about the need for a master facilities plan. Right. Well, how are we doing that? We regularly communicate about school finances. The We Are Fiscally Responsible section in the newsletter, updating our finance website, celebrating achievements like the Auditor State Award on social media. We've created two new finance videos this year, which we shared at a recent board meeting. And our annual financial prospectus is at the printer now and will be coming to mailboxes soon. As for the master facilities plan, we'll continue to update the website as more progress is made. We also share information in our mailers, including the upcoming financial prospectus. As the plan moves further along, we'll utilize other communication tactics to share that information with our community as well. Our third objective is to support our HR department. This was something that I was already pondering when we received the results of our communications audit. The auditors also picked up on a need for this, so I was able to actually brainstorm some ideas with them and see what has helped other districts that they've worked with before I approached Mr. Kramer with some ideas of our own. So Cindy on our team has been hard at work updating the HR website to make it more appealing for prospective employees, as well as creating an interactive brochure that contains information about the district. Chris has created 2 new video series, one featuring our alumni, who now work at Lakota, and one highlights teachers and staff, sharing what they love about working here. Both of these can be used as recruiting tools, as well as a way to introduce our educators to the community. We also spotlight our staff The nomination period just closed for our Educators of Excellence, recognition. Dr. Lally introduced celebrating milestone anniversaries at convocation. We put staff in the spotlight at Light Up Lakota and in our publications. We partner with Sky Zone to recognize a teacher every month. We have nomination forums to celebrate staff with Lakota limelights on social media. And this year we switched up our traditional We Love Lakota social media campaign in February to Lakota Lovebirds. After brainstorming, different staff members who are married to one another, Lauren took the idea and ran with it. The posts were so popular, we even had staff reaching out to see if they could be a part of it next year. And it's certainly worth noting that my team and I support our schools, not only with celebrating and sharing the positives, but also with crisis communications. We realize how important it is to have clear and effective communications when a situation arises. All of the efforts that we've put into being viewed as a trusted source of information, that comes into play here. If we have a crisis, we want our parents to already be accustomed to looking to us through our parent communication channels, as well as our website and district social media accounts for information and updates, not unofficial and non-vetted sources. So how do we get better? We evaluate our work. We want to know what's working and what's not working so that we can best share the story with the local schools. We're getting ready to repeat the fall communication survey to compare the results and see if we've improved, how we've improved, where we still need some work. I'll meet with HR to gather feedback after recruitment season, and I monitor news coverage, social media results, as well as the open and click-through rates for our district and staff newsletters. So to give you just a few quick examples of what evaluation looks like for us. When looking at Facebook and Instagram, we measure reach for the number of individuals who see our posts. This is very different than impressions, which measures the total number of times our post is seen. For example, if each of you see one of our posts, the reach is 7. If each of you see our post twice, the impressions are 14. We do have a presence on X, which is formerly Twitter, but the platform has changed quite a bit, as well as its analytics, so it's not really a focus for us this year. I'm very proud of the fact that as of the end of March, we've already hit our goal on most channels, and we're very close to reaching that on Facebook. And finally, with both our district and staff newsletters, I look at the open and click-through rates. What percentage of the recipients are opening the monthly district newsletter? And then are they clicking through to read more? And if they are, what are they clicking on? I suspected that our district open rate was high, just based on conversations over the years with colleagues throughout the country. But I'm pleased that we were actually higher than the education industry average as of this past March. While we've met our goal for the staff newsletter, it really bothers me that our numbers are so low for the open rate. This is definitely a work in progress for us. So again, I thank you for your time. I'm letting you share a little behind the scenes look at our communications efforts. What questions might you have?
I'll have, so what type of stories seem to drive the most traffic?
Ones that feature our kids and our staff, highlighting, actually, last month, one of the recent newsletters that we had, after Dr. Lawley's video message, the #1 clicked on story was about the Wizard of Oz program that they did. So definitely featuring our smiling kids.
I thank you for your presentation, and thank you to your team out there. I see them all their shining faces. I think that this was really informative. I mean, I spend a lot of time with you. I see you at a lot of events, and I don't think I realize how much behind the scenes things actually go on with your focus group, your implementation of your plan, your measuring, clicks and newsletters. So thank you for that. And thank you for your team always being receptive and the voice of calm, even sometimes when what you have to deal with is not calm.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your presentation. Like Mrs. Casper said, a lot of people out there don't know what you do, and it is absolutely necessary that Dr. Lawley is highlighting some of the things that we don't usually know or see. The community doesn't even know. So it's good that we're bringing this kind of highlights for your community to know what you do. And I very appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your team as well. Sorry.
I will say, I certainly appreciate having a superintendent who is so supportive of communications.
That's right.
I know that I am very lucky. A lot of my colleagues across the country are not necessarily in that same boat.
That's great. Thank you.
It may just be the P&G in me, but I love the process that you guys have taken on to systemically and with intentionality, arrive at what you're trying to accomplish and then execute and then follow up and evaluate. And I think that shows in some of the results of the growth that you've had over the past couple of years. I think my observation as a parent in the district is there's a multitude of sources and that's needed for all the different ways that people want to interact with the district. And so it's really reassuring to see some of the high open rates that you showed there, given how fractured the communications preferences are by our parents and families. And I think the continued work that you guys do is really, really impressive. So really appreciate all the effort that your team is putting on this.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this presentation. It's interesting to look at it in a different way of how many clicks, what is the percentage. I have watched communication in the district grow over a long period of time since you arrived, and it's really phenomenal to see where it has come to now. And as a user of this communication often, I find everything I need in the communication on the website available. So your team is definitely thinking of it all. So congratulations. It sounds like the report that came back is definitely something to be proud of. And communication is such an important thing and such an ongoing thing, right? Making this communication great now is only going to help us in the future when we have to go to our community and ask them to support us in any way. And so the more that we can build that up right now is only going to help us in the future. So thank you for your hard work and congratulations on your audit.
Thank you. I could not do it without my team. Lauren, Cindy, and Chris are the best.
And you had mentioned reaching out directly to staff to make sure that you are able to be there to tell all the great things that are happening. I think some of us who are parents in the district just assume that everyone knows what's happening in the classroom, and this is a great bird's eye view into the classroom for our broader community who may not have kids and aren't touching it. So I think when people sometimes question how important it is, I think it is very important to make sure that our whole community knows, not just parents, what is actually happening and how quickly education is evolving with things like Incubator U. I know that was certainly not around when I was in school, and having classes that are so good at crossing all sorts of different barriers in what they teach. So, and I think, again, part of your work helps link us to community members who might see that Incubator U and go, wow, that's something I maybe would like to be a mentor. That's something that's of interest to me. I've always wanted to be on Shark Tank. So thank you for helping to pull people in with making them aware of where there are opportunities to participate with us. So, all right. With that, I appreciate that, and thank you to the whole team. Thank you. Mr. Zink.
Okay, so a little later we will have a presentation on the upcoming 5-year forecast. It's that time of year again. Everybody gets so excited for, but other than that, we do have some exciting news. I found out while we were at the conference, 2 of the members of the team have met their levels of mastery. It's something we put in this year so that people could take kind of their learning into their own hands and reach the goals as quick as possible. So we have a couple people that will have that kind of promotion now, and we will probably take them to lunch and celebrate this year. So that's very exciting news.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, we'll move to a transportation update with Mr. Fasari and team.
Good evening. We're going to go through a transportation update. A little background for those of you who do not know about transportation at Lakota. We have outsourced our transportation since 2005, and we've had Peterman since that time. So we're going to talk a little bit about tonight. Over the last couple of years, I think it's been a struggle not only here at Lakota, but across the state and the country with recruiting and retaining bus drivers, trying to make sure that we have enough people to support the operation. Again, I don't want to sugarcoat anything, but we have struggled with that the last couple of years, and I thought it'd be great to have Barrett Wells. Okay. And Barrett Wells is going to go over some of the things that Peterman's tried to do to try to recruit, retain drivers, and answer general questions that you may have as well. But he has put together a small presentation for us to go through, and I will be available for questions as well. But I'll turn it over to Barrett Wells, who's the regional manager for Peterman.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I appreciate that. So I've got Brad Tate with me. He's our Senior Vice President for the Great Lakes area and also a longtime Lakota resident in your district. And then, of course, you know Sue Smith, your General Manager of Transportation. Super. I knew I was going to do that. I've got another GM named Sue Smith, and I knew I was going to get her. Sorry, Sue.
That's all right.
So, I thought, as Mr. Passarge mentioned, I'd go through some of what we do, some of the basics, and some of the things we're doing to overcome the driver shortage, and just sort of give you the general update. So, as you can see, I've broken out the routes. We run 188 school bus routes, 23 van routes. We have 27 van drivers. Traditionally, getting van drivers isn't so much of a challenge as it is for bus drivers. But currently, we have, let's see, 188 bus drivers on routes and then 23 subs. We have a lot of people who want to stay in sub status, so they'll still drive the same route every day. So that's about 207. Now we have 10 drivers on long-term leave, so that's one obstacle we're overcoming. So as you can see, our goal for drivers is 211, current count 197. So traditionally, in most districts, they look for about a 10% sub rate. We're shooting for 12, a little bit higher here because of the attendance issues that we deal with, and other people off on a regular basis. So that's sort of where our goal is. So let's take a look at some of the things that we've done traditionally over the years in many places, most districts do, to help recruit and get drivers. So we see grassroots stuff such as yard signs, banners, ads on the district's webpage. Of course, we use social media. And here we added a part-time recruiting position when we saw the need for somebody who could assist with the screening of applicants. So looking at some additional things, we last year added another full-time recruiting person. So that brings us up, we've got 2 full-time people who work nothing but recruiting and 1 part-time. We've also increased referral bonus and sign-on bonus to be able to attract people. We raised the sub pay from $23 to $28.50, and that was really a significant thing for us. That seemed to move the needle on getting some subs in, and really was a big help to attract people right away. And I think that's definitely one of the highest, or to my knowledge, probably the highest sub rate in the area. And as we negotiated with the union, we moved the driver wages an average of $1.70 per hour. And that, again, puts the district drivers at, if not right at, the highest paid in the area. So we feel that, wages, traditionally, as we get through some of the other information, wages traditionally has not really been the issue, the big issue for recruiting. So let's look at a few more things. This are some of our challenges that we've had this particular school year. As you can see, itemize the reasons that we have lost drivers. We've lost lots of medical issues, order of termination, resignation, had one driver pass away, unfortunately. Long-term leave. So there's about 30 drivers there right off the top that we lost. We had about 15 who trained, got their CDL, and never actually drove for us. And that's a challenge we have, and I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. 18 people were off 2 weeks or more during the school year. And of course, we have some on workers' comp as well. So, as I mentioned, attendance is an issue that we deal with. So to try to overcome that, one thing we've traditionally done is to try to identify drivers at other locations that we can bring in to help. That's become a little bit of a challenge due to the fact that there is a driver shortage, as Mr. Passard mentioned, and it's tough. We were able to bring in 9 drivers during spring break, or when they were on spring break at other locations to help here after your spring break. And right now we've got 1 driver, and we're trying to identify more who can come in and help. The 1 is helping consistently. Of course, we have staff helping to cover last-minute call-offs. And at the end of the day, if somebody can't come in, we've got to get the kids home. Staff has to step in and drive, of course. So we've also, to try to encourage attendance, we've implemented what we call the spring fling raffle. So we encourage everybody from spring break to the end of the school year. If they have perfect attendance, then we put them in a drawing for prizes and gifts. So far that seems to be working. We've got quite a few right now. As I noted, there are 170 who still have perfect attendance for this last segment of the year. So we'll do drawings for that. We do have 18 with perfect attendance the whole school year, so we'll recognize them as well. So the next question is, what are we doing to push past our obstacles? Well, we've tried to think outside the box and update things. We came up with new bus banners. Usually bus banners are probably one of the best ways to get drivers. So we're trying to utilize that, and it's already paid off a little bit as well. Putting magnets on the side of the vans to advertise, updating our ads and media, and printing flyers. In fact, our next slide is a sample of a flyer. And you'll note on the flyer, we've also increased the sign-on bonus to those who have a CDL to $3,500 to try to attract people. So certainly doing everything we can. So let's look at a couple more things. As I mentioned before, we had trained a lot of people who would get a CDL and leave. We had a problem with people getting their CDL and going to Amazon. In fact, some of them were working at Amazon. They'd come get their CDL and then move up there, and that was an issue. So we've got a training agreement that we're having people sign now that if they get their license, if they stay less than 9 months, then they pay a prorated amount for their training. So we haven't, we just implemented that again here a month or so ago, so we should see some results from that. We are accommodating on a training schedule for weekends, anything we can do to get people through the process. And one thing here that we found very beneficial is the addition of our corporate recruiting team. Our corporate office has put together a group of really professional recruiters, and they're able to do targeted marketing. And as we look down the list there, we can see a lot of the things they're doing. We used to have to outsource a lot of that. It's very expensive and time consuming. Now we have a team in-house, in our corporate office that can do that. And they've been able to really help us quite a bit. In fact, on the next slide, we see that they were able to help us with a hiring event back on March 28th. we received 50 applications and extended 24 job offers. So that was the first time we had done that, and I felt that it was pretty successful. We've got another one scheduled for right after school's out on May 30th, and we're just going to keep stacking those up and continuing to do that until we have enough drivers. You probably know Fairfield City Schools is laying off some bus drivers at the end of the year, so we feel bad that we're capitalizing on that. We've already got 8 of their drivers who've come through and started the hiring process, and we've agreed that they'll start at the beginning of next year so that we don't hurt Fairfield, and it helps us. So that's exciting. We're hoping to get more. We're trying to get a meeting with all of those that are getting laid off so we can hopefully recruit some more. So having a CDL is great. We've also increased the training pay. We heard that a lot of people were having trouble, getting through training financially, so we're trying to increase that pay. Keep monitor on that and what else we can do. So finally, planning ahead to summer. We'll continue to do the things that are working and just continue to think outside the box and look for opportunities. As it mentions here, local fairs, festivals, farm markets, anything we can do to recruit, we're going to do. We're holding daily calls to try to think outside the box and look for new ways to recruit drivers. Another key part there is trying to engage our new drivers, brand new drivers through the summer. That's usually where we can lose people. They get their license right now when school's out and they have no work and no money through the summer. So we're going to engage those who've got a good plan for that to be able to give them some work and get them through the summer. So the results. And due to the way we do our requisitions, the time period here is a little different. But from January of 23 to current, we've screened 3,755 ND resumes. So our part-time recruiter does nothing but screen these. And if they meet our qualifications, he'll send them an application link. So we sent 925. And from those, we received 739 applications. So you can see, how those applications played out there, rejected, withdrawn, hired for training. And we do currently have 48 in process, which we'll talk about here in a minute as well. So this school year so far, we've hired 37 CDL drivers, trained and hired. So, that's a pretty good number, but we're looking to increase that number so that we can continue to overcome, the losses we have and expect. So that effort leaves us, we'll take a view of the pipeline. Right now we have, I just counted the board before we came over in the transportation office. I have 46 on here, but we actually have 48 in process right now. And I think it's 11 or 12 that are behind the wheel. And I think we're going to have maybe 7 more coming pretty quick. So a lot of these efforts are starting to pick up some steam, and we're starting to continue to fill the pipeline. So we found that, continuing to pre-screen people and be selective of who we get through the process has continued to help us. So last slide. Certainly it is a process to get people through. I think the previous slide noted it takes 6 to 8 weeks to get somebody from the street to driving a bus. It can be a little quicker, it can be more depending on their skills. But the state of Ohio obviously has high standards, and as a company, these are some standards that we go even further with to try to make sure we have safe people. Because as tough as it is being short drivers, it's worse to have the wrong drivers and the problems that come from that. So one thing on here, most of this is pretty self-explanatory, but the ESI is an employee safety inventory. So it really gives them a test of their willingness to take risks and how safe they are. And they have to pass that and show that, they're not a huge risk taker to So ultimately, that's our goal, is to have safe drivers on the road. So we're working hard to overcome. I feel we've got an extremely good team working for you here at the district. They all care very much. We have a lot of sleepless nights when we have late buses or problems getting enough drivers. It's very stressful, and you can always tell good employees when they take it personal, and it's stressful, and it has been, but we're working tirelessly, so you have our assurance that you know, we're not gonna get a good night's sleep until we get to where we're not scrambling for drivers. So I feel like we're on our road to that, so. Chris is gonna hit me at end time, so if you have any questions for me?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
I appreciate all this, and I appreciate the constant out there recruiting, because we know it's been a nightmare. We know it's not just here, we know it's state and nationwide. My question is, we seem to get, and I don't know if this is harder to do or easier, a lot of emails when the bus driver is consistent and a route. Is there a way to shift that, or does it cause more chaos? So for instance, if in my neighborhood, the bus driver's out 3 days in a row, can we pull a bus driver from another route so that it's not this same route 3 days in a row and that route for 1 day?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that hard to do?
something, yeah, that's something Sue, we've chatted about quite a few times, and Sue is very cognizant of that, to try to get continuity. So as I mentioned, we have some drivers that are subs, and that we'll put them on the same route, and try to keep them on the same route. And I know we've got a couple routes that are doubled, that they're keeping them that way permanently, so that the kids have the same, so it's not changing for the kids. So the short answer is yes, we're trying to do that. I mean, when you're running 188 routes, it's not perfect.
Sure.
But we're open to any suggestions, and certainly if people have issues, we try to take note of that and make sure nobody's bearing all of the pain. Right.
Is there, the other thing that we hear often, and there's nothing you can do about this, if somebody calls you at 5:30 and they're supposed to be there at 6:15 and they're sick, there's nothing you can do about that. How do we notify the parents? Do we email? Is there a call when something like that comes up last minute?
Yeah, that's a Sue question.
Come on up,
Sue.
Sue.
I have a pretty good idea, but I'll probably get it wrong if I say what my idea is.
Hi, Sue. I better answer a couple of those questions because it's more operational, and so to the first question that you asked, because we have union drivers, I can't just willy-nilly move drivers around.
Okay.
Because they have contracts. And when they are signed to a contract, then that is supposed to be their route. Unfortunately, some of those drivers care about their job and they come to work on a regular basis. Others maybe have had family issues or things like that come up this year that has caused them. I know one of the drivers, her husband has been in and out of the hospital with heart issues. As your drivers are starting to age, so is your spouses. And so there is a lot of family issues sometimes that comes up that causes those drivers to maybe miss that 2 or 3 days in a row. I have posted. I have to create a posting for things to be able to cover routes, and I have posted and offered even an 8-hour day for you to cover somebody else's route and maybe come off yours for a time. And that has happened, believe it or not, that we have had drivers that are willing. And so we've hired a lot of subs, and with new subs comes new problems. People are lost, they're not sure where the kids are, and so it's hard. Our schools are hard to find sometimes. We have 2 that's in residential areas, and so those are very difficult sometimes for drivers to find. And but with that, I've had a couple of senior drivers come and say, I'll give my route up, let that sub drive my route every day, and then I'll cover your subs. So I have had some people step up to the plate to try to help the subs out, because they want to keep subs as well. Because as long as we don't have any subs, it's hard to take off work, unless you just call off and don't care. But with the second question that you asked me about operational, actually I've already talked through it, I think. But What was your second question? I'm sorry.
How do you notify the parents? Because-
Yeah, we have a system that Lakota created, actually, the urgent transportation email.
Okay.
And it actually goes to a text, an email, and also a phone call.
Okay.
And so whatever the information the families put into their hack account, that is how the call goes out. And sometimes people answer it, sometimes they don't.
Right.
And sometimes that call gets delayed, just like anything with the internet, it doesn't get out in time. It may go out at 5 o'clock in the morning or 5:30, it may go out the evening before. If we know ahead of time, we'll send it out the evening before, to try to give families as much notice as possible, but that's not always the case,
Right.
as you mentioned.
My last question, how do the drivers know where to go? Do they use Waze or Google Maps, or is there something on the bus, like a
It's actually route sheets. It's actually an antiquated system because the state of Ohio does not allow you to use any GPS units or anything in your bus unless it's already created in the bus. If it's not factory from the beginning, then you can't have anything extra. Nothing in your hand. You can't have a cell phone to use a GPS or anything like that. There is a two-way radio. And if you get lost, you pick that up and you call base. And we have Zonar on the buses, and so we can actually locate where they're at, and we can walk them through that route if it's necessary. You also have drivers, so here drivers will also pick up that radio and they'll help them out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I had a lot of questions that I was going to ask you, but in your presentation, I realized that you have covered most of them, especially the attendance. I was going to ask you, what are your motivators? What do you do to motivate your drivers to ensure that they're up there to work for you? Because drivers have worked in a company where I manage different sector people alongside the drivers, and I know how difficult it is to manage drivers. They do hard work, and we need to appreciate them because they're always at the back. They are the unsung heroes. You might not, if you are not careful, you might not acknowledge what they're doing, but their job is very, very important. So I saw that you have covered part of it in attendance, and also summer break. When we're on summer break, they don't have anything to do. So you mentioned that there are things you do, but what particularly do you do to keep those drivers to come back when school resumes?
Well, when school is out, so with like a sub driver or drivers, we do have some summer work that we provide. But last year, what we did to keep our subs that we have hired, we did training. We trained them all summer long. We did route sheets, we wrote route sheets, we traded route sheets, we went out and drove them, we took them to the schools, we took them to all the private schools that we transport to that are out of the district, some are difficult to find sometimes. So we just spent the summer working on off-road skills, doing turnarounds, learning the neighborhood, learning all the things like that, and we paid them a 20-hour week at the regular rate. So to keep them with hours, plus they also are able to draw unemployment over the summer, seeing that we are a contractor. And so a lot of our people do opt to draw the unemployment. And so that is an option that they have. And so anybody that is looking for work through the summer that is one of our sub drivers, and then usually a contracted driver, once they get 3 or 4 years into their career, they're building up their SERS in the state of Ohio, that just keeps them coming back. And so in Lakota, even though we are struggling, we have a lot of drivers that have 20 plus years that are still driving. And once you get that 10 years in, you're pretty much vested, and they will keep coming back at that point. But it's getting those drivers that there's a personality that fits the job. And finding that personality is like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. And so that's why we have to go through so many people, is, the first day on the job sometimes, when they've already been out there, but now this is my first day with the route and with kids. And sometimes if the kids are not well behaved, they'll come back and say, this is not for me. And so I've lost some the first day, I've lost some 2 weeks in. I've lost some that never, like Barrett said, never even drove for us, got their license and left. So it is a trial, but we will find the personalities that fit that job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys sharing not just the numbers, but also the approach to how you guys have been dealing with a very challenging time. So I really appreciate that. I have a couple of questions. For the recruiting staff that you guys have put in place, when were those people hired and put in place?
I think one was hired, well, the part-time has been 2 years. And then we hired a full-time person about 3 years ago. And then we hired the second one in the last year.
Okay, thank you. And how many districts in Ohio do you guys contract with?
We currently operate approximately 36 school districts.
36. How does our shortage of drivers compare with the rest of the districts that you're contracting with? So I'm doing some rough math here, and it looks like we're about 8% below the levels that you guys recommend for staffing levels.
Yeah, so I can speak to a couple of mine, because I have a couple of districts in Columbus, and one of them is a little bit similar, I think, in there's a lot of similarities I compare. It's a smaller, number of buses, only about 69 buses there, but very similar in community, changing in the community, demographics, everything. They're struggling as well. It's very similar. I think they're probably about 7, 8 drivers short there, struggling to cover. It seems like the smaller districts, a lot of the smaller districts, you don't need as many drivers. It's much easier. This is the largest contract, that we have in Ohio, with this many buses. So you've just got volume to overcome, and that's, I think, what makes this as much of a challenge. And Brad deals with, I think, most of our other contracts in Cincinnati. So I know he can speak to it if you want, but I know most of them, there's always districts that are short. Some of them seem to staff up. Everyone's different too. You got different pay, you got different type of people, different setting. So you can compare, but it's sometimes tough to compare because there's so many layers to it.
I'd love to see the numbers at some point.
Yeah.
I know you probably don't have them on hand, but I'd love to understand that context.
Yeah.
As we're looking at the interventions that you guys are making to see the impact of that. I know this is a nationwide trend, so I'm not trying to say that we're going to magically solve it, but we'd love to understand how those interventions are affecting us related to our peer set in Ohio.
Yeah, I'll try to pull some of that together and give the district a solid report.
Okay, great. And then looking at this, it looks like, and I'm assuming this is a relatively good snapshot of how we've been all year as far as understaffing, right?
Sue could speak to it. I think it seems like the past couple of years, we started the year with more drivers and some of our biggest, the scary time for me, and I think maybe Sue will agree, but the scary time for me is usually from start of school to Thanksgiving, because it seems like that's where everything shakes out and you lose your most drivers. Once you get through the holidays, you'll still have a few losses and wins, but it settles a little bit more. Do you agree with that, Sue?
Yeah, so at the start of the school year last year, we had hired 59 drivers through the summer. And only 36 of those, I think, or 37 is still driving. So what happens is day one when they pick their routes, the very first moment after they pick their route, 10 people goes on long-term leave. So you have the people that quit right at the beginning of the school year, or maybe 2 weeks in, they'll get their PTO days, and then they decide I'm going to resign or retire now. And that is what happens, and then you have a lot of those people that have those sick leave days, and school teachers will understand they're going to burn those days before they leave, because they're not paid out 100% for them. And so that's part of what takes place yearly. We have something called August Surprise. We always try to prepare for that, because that is something that you will see happen. And like Barrett said, between now and Thanksgiving, you'll have the people that's going to go off for a surgery to try to get in before the end of the school year. Going to have people that goes off for this or that. So where a lot of locations, we have more call-offs on a day than they have routes. And that is where the effect is. And the difference for Lakota that I have experienced in the last 15 years is when I first showed up, there was a lot of housewives, grandmas, and farmers that were running our routes. And those people were coming in, they were vested in the district. Since then, the district has sold those farms. The farmers sold, they've moved out. You have a lot of white collar workers that now are living in Liberty Township. They're not going to drive school buses. A lot of your people in Westchester, they're more of your senior citizens and are kind of landlocked. And so therefore, we're not drawing from our own area anymore like we used to. So we're drawing more from outside of the district itself. And that has been part of the change because when you work in the district, you're vested here. And you have you've got something that you're working towards. The moms, like we talked about, they're listening and they're looking up to their kids, but those are not the people that are driving their buses now. And that's one of the changes that I've seen that's so dramatic and so drastic for this district that we're experiencing and why we can't keep people long term.
So I agree that the district's changed a lot since 2005. As we've seen those changes and as we've seen this understaffing from basically the past 3-4 years, right? This is definitely amplified by COVID and stuff. Have you guys really taken a hard look at our routes and to see if consolidation and lengthening would allow more capacity in the system to accommodate some of the driver issues that we're having?
We have done that, and we have combined routes as much as possible. When you go to adding times, and Mr. Broussard will be able to speak to this, when you go adding long route times, you really get a lot of complaints from your parents.
I understand that, but I think we should at least take a look and balance that against the complaints of consistent outages on our routes.
And this is what we do.
And I would be happy to have those discussions with parents because
Right.
I know parents, it's more of a disruption to have no service or delayed service than it is to have slightly longer routes for their children.
Right, and we do have, within district, it's an hour. And out of district, it's an hour and a half, and that's what our limitations are. So if you go to a private school outside of Lakota, your bus ride could be up to an hour and a half. And so we do have in district. It's just some of the neighborhoods are smaller. You fill up a bus in 15 or 20 minutes. Some of them, it might take 45 minutes to an hour to run that route, depending on how spread out the route is. But we have looked and we have even got several right now to be able to accommodate.
Okay, I'd love to understand how many routes we have today versus 4 years ago as well.
The number of routes, we've actually increased routes over the last couple of years. Because after we went through the layoff, we actually went down to 138 routes at one time. And we've actually increased as we've added back into transportation. So 2017 is brought back our 9th grade, which added about another 38 to 40 routes. And we did that right before COVID. And then COVID hit, and it cost us a lot of drivers because we were down to 138 and had to add that 40 from April to September to August to start school with this. And so it was a challenge to even get the routes to cover up the 9th grade back.
Yeah.
And so that's where, and then COVID hit after that. A lot of our senior drivers left. A lot of my subs that were experienced left because they were older. They were afraid to come back around the kids with the scare of the COVID thing that went out. And so that's where a lot of that's taking place.
We definitely understand all that. I'd love to just see the annual number of routes that we've had since 2000.
We can get that for you.
But just to clarify on that, we have to make sure we're looking at apples to apples, because a big portion of that is by when we made the choice to increase service for things like 9th grade.
Yeah, so
or
since 2017, which was when we added that back in.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I just have a couple questions. As far as the advertising piece of it, have you done any kind of research into what advertisements and recruitments are bringing in the most folks?
I think that's what our corporate advertising group is doing.
So they've been handling, they sort of took over a lot of our Indeed stuff and some of the social media stuff that we were doing. They're much more efficient at it. We've got one of the recruiters is dedicated to Ohio to help us. So they're good with that. To be honest, on a local level, for years, as I mentioned when I was speaking the presentation, bus banner and some of the grassroots stuff is still gives you probably your best quality of driver. You know, they know what they're getting into. They're usually more local, and they'll stick with you. So that's always good. So despite the corporate efforts, that's one thing we really tried to hit on, is to keep our buses out there and do the grassroots stuff, because that's a core thing that will always get a slow trickle of people, and then the recruiters can try to fill the volume with some of their stuff.
And then I love hearing about the incentives for staff. I think providing incentives like that provides them a positive work environment that really motivates them to come and work. With that being said, has there been any study of routes in comparison to people who are leaving and how those might coincide with one another? And then additionally, are we offering the last 25% of routes that are chosen by drivers any type of incentive above and beyond the incentives that you're offering?
Well, it's kind of hard to offer a lot because of having a contract. So we can offer things to everybody. If we start picking and choosing, then that'll go against the contract, and that's where you'll have your grievances. And so a lot of that, like we do an incentive for attendance, perfect attendance every year. We pay out to everybody that has perfect attendance at the end of the year. With the spring fling, there's $10,000 worth of prizes on the table. Plus we've added in four PTO days, not days that Lakota is in, but there is days that are on non-contract that the drivers don't get paid for. They can use that to fill in their paycheck. So on that day that they're not going to get paid, if they win that prize at four PTO days, they'll be able to use it on non-contract days. So we have done a lot of stuff to offer it like that. There is sometimes routes that are more challenging than others, and those are the routes that usually some of your newer drivers get. We have actually posted those routes that were more challenging than 8 hours a day, and it didn't really seem to move the dial for people to take those routes. But the schools have worked with us greatly on discipline and trying to manage the kids and make sure that we are working with them and trying to help children ride successfully. Overall, I believe the behavior at Lakota, the students, is very good. I've worked in other districts, and I believe that our kids are pretty well maintained.
Have you done any study that compares routes to staff members that are leaving, taking time off during that August and September time, or filling out everything, picking the route, and then resigning or not coming back? And have we thought about how those routes are broken up and how we can better route to solve some of those problems?
And we have done that because when I'm looking at challenging areas, we try to keep the route count a little lower there because it seems to be a little harder to manage. We really haven't done a study on who's leaving because it's not really something about a route more than it is about not being able to manage. And sometimes people can't manage a vehicle with the students and the route itself. Sometimes it's time management. A lot of folks maybe can't get up early in the morning. That might not be the job for them. The 2850 seems to get an eye catcher, and then sometimes it does catch eyes that really cannot fulfill the job.
Thank you.
So I just would like to thank you for your long-term dedication to Lakota. I know that you make every effort to do this, and we appreciate your support. I know when we talked at the beginning of the year, you were excited about this year because we thought that we were well-staffed, had the extras, had the subs. So I guess as we're looking at next year, are we taking that benchmark where we thought we were in good shape this last August and even ramping up further from that point to make sure with that leakage that seems to be happening that we're even better equipped than what we thought we were last year?
Absolutely. And that's all the things that we've put in place. We're working very hard. Having 48 people in the pipeline at the end of the year is huge. So that means if those 48 people come through and they finish and we can move on with them, we'll keep them busy. That'll be 48 people I'll be paying this summer to try to keep in a job. That means start the school year off fresh. And The last few school years, I've started off with plenty, and we've had people in the pipeline, but it has been hard to get people to apply. Not only that, it takes so long, and there's so many requirements to start a job. And when you start working somewhere, that's why we had to add in the pay for the training, is because it might take you 6 to 8 weeks to start getting a paycheck, and then you're paid a week behind, it's another 2 weeks before you get a week paycheck. And so this sometimes is what stops people from coming on board. And it's also a part-time job. And you know, if you're trying to make a living out of driving a school bus, you're not going to make a full-time living. It's part-time, it's 9 months out of the school year, and you've got unemployment. And that is also something that people start thinking they can make it, and then they get started with a job, and then they go, I can't financially make it, and they have to leave and take a full-time job somewhere.
I think another, to your point too, you know, in us just trying to, you know, look for opportunities, right? So the hiring events, you know, we were able to be successful with that. And I think we're gonna just keep stacking them up. We've got another one scheduled, and we're just gonna keep those stacked so that we can keep our pipeline full till we get. So we have no intentions of saying, we've got a good enough pipeline, we're not gonna, we're 100% not stopping anything until we have people sitting. That's our philosophy. So we're not gonna ramp down, it's gonna be 100%, you know, pedal to the metal until we're there.
And again, we spoke earlier about those late cancellations, I think are what's especially challenging for all of our families when they don't have time to put together a neighborhood carpool or whatnot. So are there opportunities for us? I appreciate that the staff in the office tries to go out, but there's only so many people and there are things that still have to be done in the office. Have we looked at just having people that are basically there waiting for somebody to call in? Because typically on average, you know, 3 people call in every day or whatever it might be.
That's your sub pool.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there's
so right now, if everybody shows up, well, this past week, we track this every day in chat. You know, we had a day where only one driver and one monitor called off. So in that case, we've got subs that will sit. Now, rather than them sit, I know Sue mentioned that they'll go out and with a new driver, help them, you know, we'll utilize them, try to get some value from them. But yeah, when we're staffed to the point that we want to be, we will have people sitting every day. And that's okay, you know, it's better than the opposite. That's right.
Sure. And you mentioned that state law doesn't allow the handheld GPSs, but if it's equipment on the bus, it sounds like it's now allowed. So what percentage, if any, of our buses have that or will have that as we go through bus replacement?
So right now, to my knowledge, and Brad can jump in if he knows something else, but we've got a Sonar tablet, and you can get a turn-by-turn directions feature to that, but it's by a third-party vendor, and we're actually using that. It's by Tyler, and we're actually using a Tyler tablet in Columbus at Pickerington, and it's okay. It's got a lot of drawbacks. To be honest with you, it's probably not something I would want my people completely counting on. So right now, in my opinion, there's nothing reliable and good enough that I think I would attempt to use right now. Now that might change, and our company's always looking for new technology. But right now, I don't know that that's a viable option. And we're not really, Pickerington's the only place we're using that. We've tried it there, and
They freeze up. So right now, the answer to your question is we have none. We have 0 buses that have a GPS unit. And most of the buses are not equipped with it. The tablets have been added. They're not part of that, but that is something that they allow. But the tablets do freeze up. If they're run by the internet as well, like cyber, so sometimes it gives good information, and sometimes it does not. And there's nothing that really kind of helps, if you have a good route sheet to give you the right turns and where the kids are standing and their names and their addresses.
Yeah, I guess I think back to the AAA triptychs and people who are driving their car, we're a long way beyond that. So is it a state law issue? It seems to me that there's a lot of opportunity there
It's a state law. You cannot have any handhelds in your hand, or any devices like that, like a phone or anything. It's just not allowed.
So it's a state law issue.
And they do not allow you to attach anything to the dash or anything like that. If it did not come manufactured on the vehicle, it can't be on there.
Okay, so you talked about guaranteed hours and the subs are guaranteed 6 hours, and it sounds like so are most of the drivers just guaranteed 6 versus 8, or how does?
Well, the routes are chosen by seniority, and depending upon the length of the route, most senior drivers will get those. We used to have a lot of middays, which was our kindergartners, but we went to all-day kindergarten in the district, so that took a lot of the opportunity for that 2 additional hours. So we actually guaranteed our drivers 4.5 hours, and then a 2-hour midday is a guarantee as well. Our sub-drivers are guaranteed 6 hours daily. And so as a driver progresses in their seniority, a lot of our drivers are at 8 hours. Most of our routes average about 5.5 to 6 hours daily. And if they can pick up extra work like field trips or middays or subbing on routes that if they're available for them, they do that as well.
And just to clarify, some people may not realize our bus drivers drive 3 routes in the morning and 3 routes in the afternoon typically.
Typically they do, yes.
So, all right, and then this might be more of a Chris question. I have 2 questions. One is about athletic busing, and then secondarily, I understand the state has a mandate that we only miss so many routes or we're penalized in our state funding. So how are we doing relative to those targets, and how are we making decisions regarding athletic busing?
I'll cover athletic busing first. Athletic busing has been the same since basically 2011. Actually, Adam and I have been in meetings with the athletic directors looking at athletics as a whole, an entire budget, and how we do that. Transportation is one component of that budget. Right now, they have a budget allocation of $50,000 a year for their athletic program. And they work with their coaches to look at what they want to do for transportation. So they look at like your high participation teams, like your football teams, your track, they'll get participation, or they'll get transportation to all their events when you have a large number of kids. Your smaller teams don't get transportation to every event, so the coach will work with the team to figure out which ones they want to do. Typically, if it's East-West or Mason or Sycamore, right around this area, a lot of the varsity teams will just drive and do that. If it's at Oak Hills or at a further out on the 275 belt loop somewhere else, they'll get transportation. We've also looked at drop-onlys as well as a solution to that, where you can reduce your costs and get more trips out of your budget if you just do a drop-only, because a lot of times parents will be at the event and they'll ride home with family or friends after the event. So to pay that additional time for the driver to sit and wait to bring home 2 kids, it's not the best use of their budget, so they manage that. Most of the smaller athletic teams prefer, at the varsity level, just prefer to drive now. Not only because it's more convenient for them, but a lot of the times the timing right now is we don't have enough drivers even to get them to the events in a good amount of time. So all the assets that we have are out there on our regular ebb routes doing stuff, and they need to leave 3:45, 4 o'clock to get to their events, and we still have most of our assets out doing regular runs for education. So we're having a hard time getting, with the bell time changes for the junior high and the high school we did a few years back, it really impacts us extracurriculars and getting enough drivers to fill those routes as well. So but we are looking at that. Scott Kaufman estimated we probably need another $50,000 per high school to provide transportation to everything. He doesn't even know what the junior highs would need for that. So, but we are looking at that as a whole, that and with the budget piece. The second piece is, House Bill 33 did have additional language in how many days you can miss. You can miss up to 10 days of routes without getting penalized. So in order to be penalized, it's not something to report up. You have to have complaints filed against you, and the ODE will send us some documentation. We looked at those complaints and we filed, yes, it was, it's true, we weren't able to provide it. So, we have 10 days worth of routes we can miss before we get penalized. And we do have contract language that they would pick up any kind of penalties that we would have from, that. So right now, we're in a decent shape where we're right on the cusp. We're right around 9, I think, right now. So, and they've all come from the same couple parents. I do want to address a couple things that Mr. Horton talked about earlier about looking at the routes and trying to look at things a little bit differently. Over the past, you'll see something on the agenda tonight. We have looked at payment in lieu of transportation. This is something that the district has put into place over the last couple of years that we've never done before. And looking at those routes that are impractical, that are typically non-Lakota schools that you have less than 10 kids riding a bus to a school that's 20 minutes away. So we have offered that in the past couple of years to families to offer payment in lieu of transportation. And we're working right now on a project as well for our freshman busing to look at consolidated bus stops. As 9 through 12, you're not required to provide transportation, so we have a little bit more flexibility in how those stops can look. And Sue and her team have put together some options for east side, west side freshman transportation where we have consolidated stops where you would meet at one point in the neighborhood instead of driving through that neighborhood to be more efficient. We think we can get almost 12 buses savings right around that area by doing that based on this year's ridership. So we are looking at that for next year. We'll bring back a proposal for the board to consider if we want to go to consolidated routes for freshmen for next year to help reduce that as well. So we are looking at different things like that as well.
Anything else for anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming in.
Quick question.
Oh, I'm
Quick
sorry.
question. Do we believe that a master facility project where we limited the number of buildings that we're servicing, would that help with our transportation issues?
Well, if you, might eliminate buildings, but I don't know if you'll be eliminating number of students. So I'm not sure that would help as much with transportation, just make the, loading zones big enough for that 2 buses. Because if you're gonna transport 14,000 students, you're gonna transport 14,000 students, it doesn't matter how many buildings.
Thank you.
Now Chris is still in the hot seat for the facilities update. He just has different partners.
All right, so we're going to go over the master facility plan update. So a little bit of a refresher about the current working plan that we've worked on for the last number of years, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. This is still our thought process, how we're proceeding, and the work we're doing now. So we're working on the same grade configuration that we've identified with the standalone pre-K building, the K-5 buildings, 6-8 buildings, and 9-12. So that's still the grade configuration we're currently working through. Again, as we go through this process, there may be some additional thoughts and information that comes back from our community, but our work around the communications, community meetings, initial planning through the process, this was the grade configuration that stood out as the one that we wanted to focus on. Again, this is the current working plan and it's still subject to change as we get through this plan and start looking at other things. Possible building structures, again, just looking at our current facilities, what we would do with those, and what would change. With that pre-K standalone building, we're looking at Liberty ECS to be our standalone pre-K building. And our K-5 buildings would consider Endeavor, Wyandotte, Van Gordon, Union, Cherokee, Independence, and Ridge, plus an additional 4 K-5 buildings that's still to be determined. 6-8, we're looking at renovating the East Freshman building, repurposing that to be a East Feeder Middle School, and using Plains, doing additions at Plains as well to be the West Feeder Middle School. So go down to 2 middle schools and 2 main, and then for 9-12, we'd eliminate the freshman standalone campuses and have 9-12 buildings through the additions of buildings at those current campuses. So that's what we've been planning on and working on, and possible decommissions of buildings according to the OCC. We freshmen, both Hopewells, ECS and Junior, Dean Ashanti, Heritage, Woodland, and Liberty Junior, and Freedom have the potential to be decommissioned as they stand right now. Any questions about that current plan? Where we are, okay, great. So, what we don't know yet, there's still a lot out there that we don't know. Going through this master facility plan, we've been through this process. We've had a lot of community engagement opportunities, but as we restart this and look at it again, we need to start re-engaging the community again. So we still need a lot more community input that we need to look at. We don't know anything about the new building locations. We're going to do new buildings, where they will be located. We don't have any updates yet from the OCC on the new cost sets. Future enrollment, the last time we did an enrollment projection was 5 years ago, and they are already off about 500 students, so we would have to go through that process of getting a new enrollment update. So we have an idea where they said we should be, but we've already exceeded that. Community partnerships, we haven't done any explorations yet about what community partnerships would be out there. Maybe we want to look at our facilities a little bit differently if there's any partnerships. Funding opportunities and plan. We haven't into any really financial funding or plans on how to fund this. It's all just been high-level talks about that. And there's still things unknown that we haven't even considered yet. We have new board representatives. It's been 5 years. We have new community members, people going to be becoming engaged that weren't in the system a couple of years ago, but now have kids in that want to be more engaged in the process. So there's still some unknowns out there. So we still have a lot of work to do. And I don't want anybody to think just because we have a working plan that things won't change or can't change as we go through this process. So recommended next steps. So the recommended next steps is I would like to look at the process of going through the expedited local partnership program with the OFCC. This is a process where it provides a lot of benefit to the district without any risk to us in terms of what kind of data and information we can obtain for nothing more than passing a resolution to say, hey, we want to partner with you to consider our master plan. There's no obligation for us ever to use them, participate with them, to implement our master plan. But again, if we do pass a resolution, there's a lot of benefit. So if you look at the chart here, to participate in the ELP program would provide us a lot of benefit, things that we need to look at to move forward for data points. It would go back and actually purchase an enrollment study for us on their plan. So with the OFCC and the way they do the planning, everything is based on your student enrollment. The size of your buildings, everything's based on square footage, based on the number of kids. So when they do their cost studies and planning, it's all based on enrollment. So you want to have really good enrollment numbers with that. We're still going to contract our own. We've already done that piece. We're working with somebody else, but they'll require their provider to provide their own enrollment study so we can get updated numbers. And they'll do that free of cost to us if we participate in the program. Another great thing that the OCC will do is do a building assessment. So they've done this already. They've gone through and done a deep dive in all of our buildings. But again, this is a few years old now. What they'll do is look at the new updated Ohio Design Manual, which is their guidelines in structure and how schools are designed and created in 2024. And they'll go through and look at all of our buildings and develop plans and recommendations based on our current levels of our building conditions. So for example, we've done this a few years ago. If we added a new roof or upgraded a chiller or done something at a school that wasn't in the original plan, they'll go back and look at that and adjust their ratings for each one of our buildings. So our assessments are a little bit old. They provide a good baseline about where we think we would want to be moving forward. And again, this is a free service that the OCC provides for us to have different data points to consider with only the obligation of passing a resolution. There's no cost to us to engage in, and they absorb all the costs to do these assessments. So those are the two main drivers for your master plan piece of it. Once they do those things, you have to agree with them, with the enrollment study again. We have our own done, and they have one done, we're able to compare, look at methodologies, question that. We can go through that process and look at that, and again, they'll go through, we'll look at their assessments, at everything they've said that our buildings need. And we also have opportunity to have a dialogue with that, and we think they're overstating a building or understating a building. We can have those conversations, hey, we put a roof on here, you didn't account for it, let's look at this differently. So there's conversations, but the bottom line is, once you agree on the enrollment and the assessments, they'll start to generate master plan options for us based on the current rate configuration that we want to look at, or others that may come up through community conversations as we get through this process. So for us to move through this process, for them to develop plans at really no cost to us, I think it's a program the state offers, it's free to us, provides a lot of great data, and there's really nothing that we have to do besides say we want to participate in this program. It requires passing a resolution of the Board of Education saying, yes, we want to pass this. The thing that a lot of people get hung up on is when do you think you're going to go out and acquire the funds needed to implement the master plan? I had a conversation on a conference call with our architect and the OCC personnel last Wednesday, and their recommendation is the sooner you can put that date when you think you can realistically have some plans or funds to implement this, it's the best for you to do that and not put a date that's going to be way out in the future. So they have a number of schools, they have 600 plus school districts, plus vocational schools, all applying for this, these services at the same time. And if we want to do it 3 years out, then they're going to put us on a plan that's going to be 3 years out. If we say we want to go and plan around November 2025, then that looks set up at this process that we have to go through. And really, the whole process to get through the study, their producing master plans, their board approval, our board approval, it's really probably 12, 14-month process. So you really have to be pretty far out to get there to do that. So it would be my recommendation to look at that as an option moving forward. So if you want to look at the timing of it all, I would recommend looking at a resolution today and having all the work done between where it says identify segment above that till now, done by August 1, 2025. So that would involve a lot of those, we don't know yet on that slide, having those community conversations, looking at partnerships, having the OCC go through all our documents and looking at things that we need to do to our buildings to start gathering that data and sharing that data with our community. And the goal would be to have a master plan selected that the OCC could approve at their August meeting, and by September 1, we would have a shovel-ready plan. So not to say that we're going to implement, maybe the timing isn't right, who knows what the world's going to look like in a year from now, a year and a half from now, but we'll have a plan that our community likes, that the Board of Education likes, that our staff and students like, and it'll be ready to go whenever we decide we want to fund it and how we want to fund it moving forward. So, and to get all this, there's no cost to us. And I think it behooves us to look at this as an option moving forward to try to do that. I know I went through kind of fast, but.
Chris, can I just clarify that we have passed an help before and that we have not moved forward with the work? It was, we were able to do this original phase.
Right. We passed an ELP resolution in November of 2019. They went through, they did the assessment for us, they did the enrollment study, then we paused it and we're like, okay, that was when you're ready again. And I think we're at the point where we're ready again to go through this process and maybe go a little bit deeper and try to get to a master plan number and look at that. And again, it provides opportunities with the, I didn't even talk about the cost sharing piece of it, to be able to see what our opportunities if the district wants to move forward. There is a cost share where the state would help co-fund some of the projects. Right now, we're at 31%. The state would fund, and the local share would be 69%. Again, we don't know what that cost set is right now. We haven't gone through this with the numbers. That's where our percentage is right now. So That numbers will not be locked in until you get a master plan approved, and you do a project that's $1 million or more that's within that plan. If you look at that, so a master plan project could be one of the buildings that we say we're gonna keep. Let's say it's a Wynot or Endeavor. If we're getting ready to replace roofs on them, because they're the same age school, built the same year. If we gotta replace, total roofs on those, it's probably gonna be over $1 million to do those 2 roofs. You've already got that quota, we're gonna do it anyway out of our PI fund, and you lock in your rate and you're set with the master plan. Then whenever you wanna do the rest of it, you can do it. That's the nice thing about, having your plan approved. You can segment it out however you want. You can do small chunks, big chunks, whatever the board of the community decides is the next best thing for it to do. You just gotta have it ready to go in order to react and be flexible enough to do it, and not go through this whole process every time.
Any questions from the board? Anyone? No? All right. Thank you for that presentation. We appreciate this. I think we all recognize the need to address our facilities needs, given right now some of our learning needs are being challenged by class sizes, but we just don't have the room to even, if we wanted to fund an additional teacher to meet those classroom needs, we don't have the space in order to put them. So I think we all recognize not only is this a facility need, but it's impacting what we're able to do from an educational basis as well. So thank you for moving this forward and getting us going on the timeline. All right. With that, we'll move to board reports and policies. First readings.
Well, good evening. On Friday, April 5th, board policy meeting met with our Neola representative. We went over the update that comes from Neola twice a year. This one is volume 42, number 2. And there are 14 policies that were up for revision. I'll go through these numerically quickly as just kind of a quick overview. Policy 0100 has been revised to include the correct bylaw number reference. That's the only change there. Policy 2623, the House Bill 33 update. The schools must provide parents with student scores on any state assessment administered to the student. Various methods are permitted to send that notice. There's also legal citations and cross-references that have been updated as well. Policy 262302, third grade reading guarantee. I think the past couple times I've been up here, I've mentioned this one, that this one will probably have another revision next year too. It's this ongoing process of figuring out what they're doing with third grade reading guarantee. As House Bill 33 has been part of this recent revised part to reflect current administration windows for student assessments, and Ohio Revised Code language updates as well. Policy 312004, once again, House Bill 33 reflecting that districts may employ student teachers as substitute teachers on a semester-to-semester basis upon approval of the board, and schools just need to work with those universities. I'll take the next 3 together, 3140, 4140, and 4124 are all basically the same update with House Bill 33 language that permits districts to provide notice of the board's intention to terminate or the employee's desire to resign by regular mail with a certificate of mailing or email, now that we are using email more and more as proof of delivery, or any other method that is proof of delivery. It just gives you that flexibility so that it can be a two-way communication using email as well. Policy 5310, once again, part of House Bill 33, school buildings that enroll girls in grades 6 through 12 are required to provide free menstrual products to those students. Policy 8600, provisions have been added to help districts fulfill their obligation to establish travel time standards for students with disabilities, and also additional House Bill 33 language is added throughout. Policy 8604, additional cross-references to relevant policies in addition to House Bill 33 language added. Policy 8640, title of this policy is updated for accuracy. In addition, it's been revised to recognize that some districts may charge personnel costs associated with driver's time and cross-references to other related policies have been updated as well, including House Bill 33 language. Policy 8650, administrative code uses the term vehicle now instead of just van, because there are some school districts that may use larger size vehicles that aren't necessarily a van or a bus. The expression we heard in the meeting was like if they have a Suburban that they use, that doesn't qualify as a van, so now just using the term vehicle. 8660, approved transportation regulations addresses routine use of vehicles, including regular use of a personal vehicle in transportation of students. And once again, House Bill 33 is added. Then policy 9211 is actually a carryover from the fall, from the 42.1 update, and took a majority of our discussion time about how do we want to handle this. This is optional language that more concretely defines safe levels of involvement and insulates staff, employees, and board members from being placed in situations where their activities with support organizations creates potential conflict of interest. This was a suggestion based on what we're coming from other school districts, based on recent statements by the Attorney General on making sure that people are not violating their conflict of interest. So trying to work through that suggestion, but also giving some flexibility to our employees so that if they want to be a part, as long as it's not at the school in which they're employed, they're able to. And I'm sure Ms. Casper and Mr. Horton can explain the lengthy conversation we had to try and capture that appropriately without just saying it's cut and dry for everybody, but trying to specify as long as you're serving in that critical role, being a member of the PTA or PTO, as long as it's not in the building in which you are working. So those are the 14 policies that are up for first read tonight.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Mr. Vogelman?
I just have a comment on the last policy change. I think it's good that we eventually got to which organizations we're talking about, not nefarious organizations. This is strictly parent organizations within buildings that have control of finances, and so where those finances are allocated. And so it's basically to eliminate not just any potential conflict of interest, but also the appearance of a conflict of interest for anybody who's employed by the various levels within our district.
So basically, you can work at CRP and be a PTA executive board at Wyandotte. So just as long as it's not your own building, and then we did specify that board members and central office staff cannot sit on any executive boards in any building, because we touch all of those schools.
And to drive down the point, it's not that they can't participate in the organization, it's just they can't serve on the executive board where they would have that type of influence on where finances are allocated.
It was the majority of the meeting. And again, this has been an ongoing issue, so we appreciate the clarification. I think our buildings will appreciate that clarification, so everyone knows. And again, it's for the protection of everyone involved. It's not trying to be punitive, it's trying to make sure that no one inadvertently gets themselves in a situation where it's perceived as something that it's not intended to be. Correct. So, thank you, Mr. Bolden.
Thank you.
All right, now we have Lovely Tech. And I've gotten behind in handing out the newsletter, so each person take a paper clip, because you have more than one, so just take one paper clip, yeah. So, the last board meeting, we had recognitions of employees, they call them their Empower Awards, so that was nice to see. We had an FFA group from Talawanda come in and share with us. They do competitions on Robert's Rules of Order. And so they did a pretend meeting with following Robert's Rules of Order, so that was fun to watch and very quick paced, and the girls did a great job that were there. ODE, the Butler Tech applied for a grant from ODE that is going to allow them to provide driver's ed for all of their students for the next 2 years. So it was a $61,000 grant. So for families at Butler Tech, they'll all be able to get that service there without having to pay for that. So as we know, anyone whose kids have gone through driver's ed, it's usually about a $600 expense. So that was a great thing to be able to do. Career exploration is going to look a little differently. In the past, students from the different member schools of Butler Tech have had the opportunity to go to Butler Tech and 8th grade, and now they're looking at how to push that out so that they will be going out to the buildings to provide some of that career exploration right in the student's own building and do some more work around that. So I think that will be a positive, more ongoing way that they can support career exploration. The Association of Career Technical Education will be doing a conference at Butler Tech on Friday, so they're going to have a significant number of people coming in from throughout the state and beyond to look at what's happening here, so that's always a good compliment. May 2nd is our all boards meeting. Unfortunately, we at this table, for the most part, will be involved in the interviews, but we're looking forward to Dr. Lally being there with some members of the team from our curriculum department to represent Lakota and see what's happening there. And it's always a culinary delight as well, as the students all showcase their favorite thing that they made this year. And so we're sorry to miss that. And then last but not least is one of our students from West, who also attends Butler Tech's bioscience building, received a perfect 36 on her ACT, representing one of the top 0.25% of students in the country who has received that honor. So congratulations to Miriam. And that's it for Butler Tech. Any questions? All right, we'll move to community engagement.
We have rescheduled we had a meeting beginning of the month. We've rescheduled the special ed community conversation, the second one, to May 30th at 6:30 at Lanes. And we had some discussion on, we will take some time this summer to look at planning for what community conversations and styles we would like to do for next school year and how we want to fit those in. And then you want to talk about the volunteer aspect that we talked about?
Yeah, I think one of the issues outside of our committee meeting, but also in our role in working with the district parent council and the president's council, I think we've seen it who volunteered in the schools. Since COVID, there's been a seismic change in the amount of number of parents who are volunteering in schools, as well as the time. And so one of the clarion calls that we've heard for years, but I think it's becoming a crucial issue in several of our buildings where the PTSOs are in really dire shape from a capacity standpoint, not stability, but just people that work the events, right, or to do the work. They've been calling for how can we look to increase volunteerism in the district. And so that's one of the things that I think the community engagement committee is going to look at to see what role the board can play, as well as the district in helping promote volunteerism in our schools. I think we identified that there was a habit change that happened during COVID when parents weren't allowed in schools. And so, as parents, we just got comfortable with that. And so let's get them uncomfortable and get them back in schools and celebrate that. So I think that is easy to say, much harder to kind of, what are the tactical plans to manifest change there? But we see that as one of the urgent needs for our parent-teacher organizations and our buildings that rely on that. So we'll be taking on that work this summer too to come up with what those plans might be for next summer. And welcome any ideas that my fellow board members have.
Just trying to figure out how to help them. We're not necessarily going to go out and recruit volunteers, but how we can maybe work with them as far as a planning committee and as a district of, maybe every building has a teacher, open house, and you go in and the teacher signs up, who's gonna come read, who's gonna come do the red folders, who's gonna come do the mailboxes. And then you get the PTSO who also says who's gonna come help with the carnivals and the walkathons. So maybe one of the solutions would be just one master volunteer sheet. Instead of trying to, pigeonhole your volunteers, maybe have one master. So just something like that, the PTOs are gonna, we talked about this at the President's Council as well, so they're gonna kind of do some brainstorming of their own and hope that we can figure out a way to help them bring some people into their buildings to help, because the reality is that they're not gonna be able to provide some of the things they have in the past if they don't have the volunteers.
I know at Local Junior, several programs are looking at not happening next year because nobody's there to not just even run it, but man it. And then at the junior high level, or at the elementary school level, several elementary schools said they were looking at cutting events.
And I heard that even maybe PTOs might not exist in at least one building.
One building was challenged, we recruited some people, and I think hopefully we got that stabilized. But it just shows you that, we really do live in And those organizations are such an important part of the systems of our school, and this facility that provided, I can't remember which school, it was the one elementary school just installed a new playground structure. Independence, right, and that's a multi-year fundraising effort to do that. I know we've done that as we needed, so they leave such a lasting impact on our schools. And again, when I talk with people, I think most people want to help, they're just not used to doing it, so how can we change that?
Yeah, again, perfect, thank you. Finance committee? No, want me to start out with it? So, Adam is going to be talking to us about the 5-year forecast already, and that's what our finance committee meeting was, so I don't think we need to cover too much. He just went over all the assumptions and how we're moving forward. Are we good? All right. We'll move to, we have meetings, dates, and times that are now attached to the board agenda, so should anyone like to pull those up, you may, and you'll be able to see our committee meetings and meeting dates.
Yeah, we did that on the regular meetings also, and I put in one column the committee and then the other column board meeting, and added the special meetings that we've noticed today.
Thank you. All right, and now we'll go to administrative report and the calendar.
Lakota strives to get the school calendar approved a year in advance to ensure all stakeholders have time to prepare and plan accordingly. So this first read tonight is not for next year's calendar. I always want to make sure everyone understands that. Next year's calendar has already been approved and is already on our website, has been since June of 2023. So we are talking about the 25-26 school year. So like I mentioned, we try to work about 15 to 16 months out in advance of this. The process we use is we work with our district parent council, and we met on Wednesday, March 6th to help create this first draft for the 25-26 school year. We used parent representatives that worked in teams. We had 7 different table teams that represented each of our grade band buildings. We had an ECS representative, elementary, junior high, and high school. They reviewed several things. We gave them a copy of our current calendar, next year's calendar, previous year's calendars. For example, we look at past history, for example. So when is New Year's Day? Is it on a Tuesday? Is it on Wednesday? Is it Thursday? What does that look like when you look at dates? So when Christmas is on a Wednesday or a Tuesday, how did we typically run our schedule? So we look at those. We also look at our contract language rules for both our teachers and our support staff. We also look at rules surrounding House Bill 59, which was introduced back in 2015. That requires minimum hours for students to be in class. We also looked at various practices we typically do. For example, it's been a history here for many, many years that we use a conference exchange day the day before Thanksgiving. So we always take that Wednesday off the day before Thanksgiving, and then we also use that conference exchange day on President's Day weekend as well, on that Friday to give family support every weekend. So we looked at those. Probably the biggest key driver in any creation of the school calendar, I'd say in the past 5 to 6 years that we've been doing this, is we want a true winter break for our kids. So we don't want to try and carry first semester over into January after a 2-week layoff from school. We want to finish first semester at that winter break. So that's probably the number one driver that makes us start looking at that date and then working backwards and then working forward. As we strive to balance each of our quarters and each of our semesters, we also take a look, make sure that we have PD days at the end of each quarter. We always make sure that we keep our school safe, so on our election days, we always put a PD day on there as well, so you can see that one in November, and also in the May election day. We also try to make sure that we balance those semesters and those quarters, and then also keep in mind the contracted work days of all employees. And so, as tables work on their own, we ask them to report out. Typically what you find is very common things start coming out when you try and do that balance, when you work back from winter break and you move forward to winter break. So that is what led to the creation based on the most common dates of starting school on that August 14th, and then balancing 44 days the first quarter and 41 days the second quarter. One thing we always try and we've done recently is kind of put a little bit of a fall break in there. So that's why you see those 2 days in the middle of October, the 16th and 17th. And then once again, we try and end in time around that winter break, try to get 2 weeks. And then as we continue on through the rest of the year, the next big question is when do you put spring break? And then the debate goes, it's too early, it's How do we fit it in? And what we try and do is we also try and work with our teachers and our support staff of making sure that we try and prevent starting their first work day like on a Friday and then having them come in Monday, Tuesday. Or ending the school year with students on Friday and then make teachers come back the Tuesday after Memorial Day. I'm trying to end on a Thursday so that they're done. And so by doing that, that kind of drives where you tend to put that spring break as well. We always like to give that Good Friday off as well because the staff are committed for religious holidays to take a day off, and that would be one that we would not be able to have enough subs to cover. And so that's where spring break is as well. It's that Friday, that spring break is Good Friday. So that's the calendar that's before you, and per House Bill 59, we'll collect feedback for the next month on our website. This will get posted in the next day or two and start asking for people to give their feedback. We'll take a look at those comments that come in. We'll share them out with the executive team, see if there's any consistent themes that we think warrant a change, and then we may make changes or we'll keep the same. After 30 days, we'll bring it back to you for second read approval, either in the May 20th board meeting or the first one. Questions about creation of the school calendar?
No, thank you for all the work that's already gone into this. It's very fascinating to be at the DPD meetings when this happens, because inevitably there's somebody who's never done it, like maybe an early childhood parent who's their first time, and they're like, we want to start after Labor Day and we want to get out Memorial Day. And we're like, okay, do it. And they're like, oh, wait. I said, you can't have like 22 days in the first quarter and, 63 days in the second quarter. But it is interesting that after doing the process, they all basically come to the same conclusion.
I think that process too, having good service, has elicited a lot of things that we have taken into account. So certain ways that we've limited disruption due to students with special needs. We have two full weeks over the winter break to deal with shared joint custody across families. There's been a lot of good things that have come to us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great. And now, with no further ado, Mr. Zinn.
Next up, what everybody's been waiting for. Okay, so we have a 5-year forecast. We're going to do a little bit of an overview tonight, so everybody's on the same page with what we're looking for, what we're looking at for the next meeting when we get ready to approve our 5-year forecast with assumptions.
This fancy thing.
I really put a lot of work into this one. Okay, so what is the 5-year forecast? The 5-year forecast, it's a one-time snapshot of our financials based on what we know at the time. So we have 3 years of our actual data. Then we have 5 years that we forecasted, which includes our current fiscal year as well as the 4 future years after that. This only includes the general fund. It does not include any of our other funds. It does not include the cafeteria. I kind of skipped a slide there. But okay, so now, what the forecast is not. Sorry about that. So this is not, it's been a long meeting.
We say you know the answer.
I know, I'm going to try to go fast for the sake of everyone. So this is not the treasurer's report. This is considered the board's forecast. So basically, we put the work together to put this all together for the board to approve. This is you guys' design. So we're not including the permanent improvements. We're not including the cafeteria. We're not including student activities, although those funds can have implications on our forecast. They're not directly represented here. Another thing that we always say is this is not etched in stone. This is a very fluid, mobile document. Okay, so we are required to file this every November and again in May. Board will approve that based on assumptions that they can live with. And so we'll have with that, that's the forecasted numbers, and then the corresponding assumptions that basically would describe to the reader how we come up with these numbers. So what we will continue to do with this forecast, as we've done in the past, is we'll continue to define the goals of the district. We'll then align the budget with those goals, to then implement the goals, and then evaluate and align the goals as we move forward year over year. So So the next steps for this is we're going to define current challenges that we would have and see if there's any direction the board would like to look at, like to go as we continue to plan on the approach to getting the approval of this. Plans is to take this to board for approval at the May 6th meeting, the upcoming meeting. Okay, so anything you guys have seen? We did have some talk this afternoon. Part of what we mentioned was like with the extracurriculars and the transportation, we're trying to take a more holistic look at the way we're budgeting on not just our general fund, but the other funds as well to align the expectations of the community, which the board represents, with what we're offering to our students. So, thoughts?
I think Isaac and I shared our thoughts on finance.
Yes, we did.
Anyone else
You
have
guys
anything
good?
they'd like to weigh in on?
The fact that I'm not asking any questions means you have done an amazing job.
It does not mean that.
It's like, I will say too, that one of the, I think sometimes people get confused that when we have to approve the 5-year forecast, we just have to approve that you did the 5-year forecast and that we believe that what you have done is legal and you've done all the right numbers and you've calculated. It's not necessarily a vote that we agree with it, or that it's procedure. We still have the open dialogue, we still have the conversations about what we're gonna do when we go deficit spending and how we're gonna do that, and that is all a conversation that we should be having on an ongoing basis.
The forecast is a planning document so that everybody can see the direction we're heading in. You're voting on the assumptions fairly represent the numbers. Now, everything that we're doing goes into that every day.
Right.
And that's the planning that happens every week, every day. This is just a picture that is captured.
Okay, so, and what I'll say is, I think, given the fact that you communicate so much in all of our meetings, all the way along, like the assumptions, we've already talked about these assumptions. This isn't, I haven't seen anything new in this forecast that hasn't been discussed already.
There shouldn't be a lot of surprises.
Exactly, right, which is a good place for us to be at.
Yep. So,
All right,
that's it.
thank you. And we appreciate your new snazzy presentation.
We do.
And colors, pretty, tasks.
And Jenny Logan would be so proud.
Takes back my trapper keeper days.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to treasurer's recommendations 9A and B, we have approval of board minutes and approval of monthly financial reports. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, Anna, please call the roll.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. D? Yes. Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, we have superintendent's recommendations A through G, approval of personnel items, approval of ELA and math adoptions, approve the Edmonton Apex contract, approve a resolution authorizing 24-25 membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association, approve field trips, approve a resolution declaring transportation impractical for the 23-24 school year, and approving donations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? I'll just add that the transportation routes, you may recall, we had done this once before, this is round 2. So if you see that and wonder why, that's on there. And the Ohio High School Athletic Association is what we affectionately call OHSAA, so.
I have a question there.
Okay.
Yeah. Have there been any update from their policy recently?
No, right.
I did want to thank Lauren Webb and Kara Kowa for the service to Lakota local schools. Both are losses to the district. Lauren has been recruited away from us, and Kara is moving home. So we will miss both of them, but we wanted to thank them both for the time that they spent in Lakota serving our students.
Thank you for that, absolutely.
Let me ask one question. So how do we get the updated policy? Is that
That would be through Neola is when they will do that, and right now, there's been a stay and then the change of legislation, so it may take some time depending upon how that all plays out as to what updates occur. Is my understanding.
It's on hold, given
Yeah, it's been
technical
on
challenges.
hold.
Yeah.
The bill.
So I think everyone's waiting to understand how those legal challenges play out.
Before.
Legislation's been put on hold, but it was passed.
Okay.
All right, anything else from anyone? All good? Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. And now for board recommendations A, the expedited local partnership program out. You all get to listen to me read aloud again today. It's the resolution of intent to participate in the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission expedited local partnership program. Whereas the Board of Education of the Lakota Local School District, Butler County, Ohio, met in regular session on April 22nd, 2024, and adopted the following resolution. And whereas the school district intends to participate in the expedited local partnership program as outlined in SB 272, and whereas the school district is planning to expend local resources to achieve a separate and distinct part of an overall master facilities plan of the school district's facility needs as prepared in conjunction with the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, that is either new construction or major repairs. And whereas the school district intends to move forward with a ballot issue and/or apply other local resources in November 2025, and acknowledges this date may not be sooner than 12 months following the date of this resolution unless the district has a master's facility plan developed under another OFCC program. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Lakota Local School District, Butler County, Ohio, that the school district declares its intention to participate in the expedited local partnership program. Do I have a motion? Are we taking a second? I think so, yes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just to point out again that the getting the local share and/or going to the ballot doesn't mean we're putting a levy on the ballot in November of 2025.
Yeah.
Hearing no further discussion, Adam, please call the roll.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, we have 11B, which is sub-teachers pay to begin with the 24-25 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Discussion? We talked about this, we previously had approved a contract with ESE to do our subs. The pay rates vary locally from $125 to $135. We had been at the low end of $125, we're now moving to $130. And in the interest of trying to increase our sub placement rates, Adam looked at that, and it's 62% currently. So we're hoping with this slight bump up that we'll be able to have a higher fill rate. And again, that not only has an impact on actually having somebody there, but the whole educational outcome of our students. If we only have a 62% fill rate, we feel like it's important to invest in that additional amount, and we'll see how that impacts our fill rates, and we're hoping that it will improve.
Yeah, when we asked for the data, anywhere between 10 to 20% higher than what we are having fill rates. So we're hoping that'll have a positive impact.
So, but this wouldn't, I have a question, this doesn't change our relative position within, when we're looking at other districts in the area, right? We'd still be in the same relative position between districts in compensation?
We would be higher than the main pack at this point.
Okay,
Most
so
people
we're-
are 125.
Yeah,
so
there's
still.
3 districts that would still be higher. We
Okay.
wouldn't be catching up with them, but we would still be above the core group.
Okay, so we're lift us above the others. So.
Yes, that's correct. And the cost of this estimated is around $98,000.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Adam, please call the roll.
Mr. D?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer?
Yes. All right, closing comments. We'll start with Dr. Lally this time.
I'd like to just commend those students that have opted to go into the military, either through the academies or through ROTC at a university, or by joining directly. We had West military ceremony today. We have East military ceremony on Wednesday. And it's a very proud moment for those students' families, and I think a very proud moment for the school district to acknowledge them. We had musicals last weekend and the weekend before. Mamma Mia was the weekend before. Footloose was this past weekend. Both outstanding performances by our students, so congratulations to all of them and to their directors and the musical directors and the orchestra, the pit directors as well. It was just outstanding. Both of them were. And you've already mentioned, Mrs. Schaefer, the Butler Tech All Boards meeting next week. There will be 3 of us attending, representing Lakota, planning on eating your share of food. Thank you.
I missed it last year.
And we have started the search and the interview process to replace the principals that have resigned. And we will be filling those positions and letting you know once we have those candidates selected. We also have an assistant principal position that we will post for after we fill the principal's position, so that the principal can actually be part of that determination. And then we also have some curriculum positions that we've posted, and we'll be filling those positions as well. So we're in the midst of hiring some administrators at this point. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Can I have a question on the principal that resigned? Was there any reason they give us any detail for resignation for the principal?
Why did they resign? One is
The
moving
principal.
back home and one is was recruited closer to their district, their home district.
Oh, okay.
One is actually moving to another state, to her home, and the other principal is moving closer to her home here in Ohio.
Ah, I see. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, we just got back from the ASBO conference, that was last week, and that kind of always marks the top of the slide into fiscal year end, and next thing you know, we are at convocation again. So this is the beginning of the end for fiscal 24 and heading into 25, so it's very exciting. That's all I have.
Just reiterate that the plays were amazing and the military commitment ceremony was outstanding. Looking forward to East. And this is a busy time of year, like Mr. Zing said, we're on a downward slide and we're getting ready for graduation and then the school year band and choir concerts and 6th grade promotion nights and 8th grade move-up nights and busy time of the year. Absolutely.
Mrs. Frank? I just wanted to say thank you to Lauren and Sarah for the work they've done in our district over the last few years. They've been very important people in their roles. They brought about some great things in their buildings and in the district, so thank you to them. Also, I'm particularly excited about some of the things that we talked about in tonight's meeting, like the hiring of our next superintendent and our master facilities. These are things that we've been talking about for quite a while, so I'm excited to see steps forward towards those things. So I'm looking forward to that and all of the fabulous things happening over the next few weeks.
I will say I'm in Footloose withdrawal myself. Mamma Mia soundtrack was playing very loudly last week, and then now it's definitely on Footloose. It's competing in Taylor Swift's new I will say, and similar to you, Mrs. French, really excited about the fact that we voted for the ELPP today. In my mind, this is a vote that should have happened over a year ago. And to have a plan that we had worked with the community with to get into the shape and to not move forward with I'm glad that we're still moving forward now and that we're able to have insight in line. I think this gives us so much flexibility to actually further refine the plans and really develop something that the community will be proud of. So really thank you to my fellow board members for voting for that tonight. That's it.
Okay, we had our OSBA Southwest Regional Executive Committee meeting on April 17th in Dayton. They highlighted the legislative conference coming up tomorrow, 23rd, April 23rd. I don't know any of because we're so busy.
We're going.
Oh, both of you are going. Okay, yeah, you usual, the president and the vice president attend.
At Libby.
You be attending as well?
Party.
Okay. Yeah, so that, the highlight was the attendance, and also on the governor's effort on science of reading is another initiative that the governor is paying attention on. So there was a highlight on that. And also on Leo Lucas scholarship. Each region is committed to one student. So they're encouraging that we encourage our students to apply. So I'm going to give you more information on that. So that's all on the meeting. The next meeting is coming up on August 6, 2024, and it's going to be a summer outing at the meeting, which begins from 2 p.m. in Greenville, Ohio. I'm looking forward for that because there's going to be a tour of the museum in Greenville. So it's going to be an exciting time. For tonight, I appreciate the students because I remember when I was a kid, I don't know whether I would have been able to think about being a solution, like bringing a product that is going to be a solution to those that have problems with items. So I'm so excited to see that coming up from our kids, and I look forward to seeing them making that presentation to Shark Tank one day, and I'll be excited. I'll shout. These are my kids. That's all I have. Thank you.
Again, reiterating, both of the plays were amazing, or musicals were amazing. I especially love at Lakota how many kids are involved. So you mentioned that we have a live orchestra, they have the kids who are backstage come out, those who are constructing sets. I mean, it's endless of all the different roles. And at one point, I'm sure there were 5 times there were more, I counted 25 kids on the stage in a musical number simultaneously. I mean, that's hard to do at a high school level, and very impressive with how just the breadth of all the talent and how many people they're able to pull in. And we're also talking about the depth too. Most schools have 1 or 2 kids that have really great voices, but they are able to go really down the depth chart of songs. Whomever is singing always does a great job. Just to clarify, we did talk about the military commitment ceremony at West and that it will be at East. The reason we canceled our evening one is because unfortunately most of the kids had conflicts and weren't able to come, so I believe there were just a couple people who were going to come, and so that it felt like it would be better served to be in the buildings, and we were able to have just 7 kids today, so we'll be able to recognize more kids. Again, incubator, love those kids. Before our next meeting, we will have East and West Palm, so just a reminder for everyone, that's always a time of joyous celebration for our students, but I think an anxious evening for our administrators to make sure everyone makes good choices and has a good and safe evening. So I hope everyone enjoys themselves, and with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second. Okay. Any discussion?
Who do we have to second?
I say second. All right, Adam, please call the roll.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. D? Yes. Ms. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Horton?